So I figured instead of writing a whole post, I would just do a nice little video of my patio-ponic system, or my hydroponic system I have on my patio. When I moved in, I realized I had some pretty good sun exposure, not 100% amazing sun exposure, but enough to facilitate some growth. I have a bucket system with net pots and hydrogen, kind of put together as best I can, and try to save on cost and use whatever I had on hand. So I got plenty of mixed fittings and things here and there that I just had to make it work. So I do herbs, tomatoes. This was a little tomato about that big about a month ago, which surprisingly enough I found cleaning and had sprout down there. Actually, down that little crack right in there. He, I guess a little tomato that I crushed and swept away grew. So hey, free tomato. All right. Got a little bit of gypsy pepper in here right now. This is 2 years old. Grew a little funny because the mother plant of this one literally last year just grew all over the place. I didn't really prune it as much. I just let it just go crazy. It was indeterminate. So, because it's a great tomato variety. So this little pepper plant was starved for light and kind of can't support itself and grew funky. Actually, I lost part of it in a storm last year, but it is bouncing back with a vengeance. I have peppers and peppers and peppers and more peppers galore. It's a hybrid. Of course, you can go the whole organic and special varieties, but I'm not too picky. And sometimes I found that hybrids are just easier because they're grown to be stronger plants. And essentially hybrids aren't a bad thing. They're just plants that are bred, from optimum situations. They're not really genetically modified in any way. So that's not a bad thing. I don't care about, I'm not going to do GMOs, but hybrids are okay for me. Which, quote me, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's all good. So this sage is 2 years old. I actually had it was out to like here, and I had cut it all back, and it's been very, very happy. So I'm happy with it. It looks healthier, lusher leaves as well. Green onions from the store, bought them to cook with. Used the stubs, shoved them in the little net pots, and now I got green onions for life. A little citrus plant I bought. I put in this 7th bucket. Actually, I just realized it's white. I need to wrap that. It's growing, but kind of not growing. But yeah, I don't know. It's in limbo. There's so much of a root base. I kind of just shoved it in there. I didn't really do the best jobs, but we'll see. I mean, it's flowering, so, and fruiting, but oh well, whatever. I'm gonna have a manzano, or an apple chili that's gonna go in here. They're orange, jet black seeds, super cool pepper, spicy as all get up, but also kind of fruity, and a really thick flesh, which I like. I did Thai chilies last year, but those are good for heat. They're like thin like paper. There's only so much you can do with them. Put some green beans in here. I don't know if they're gonna sprout. I didn't really do the little seed pots. I probably should have. I got so many seeds on hand, I just kind of tossed them in there, see what was happening. Mix herbs, basil. I had so much basil last year, it was monstrous. I figured I'll do a better job this year of trimming it back and using it. This is that hot and spicy oregano, which I really like. I don't use a lot of oregano, but this is super good. And then, of course, lemon thyme. I made some verticals, some budget verticals. I was looking at how people do things online, and I was like, I can come up my own little way. And so I cut it right here, did a little hot, I have a plastic welder, so I got this super hot, and I just bent it in and then caulked it to make little cubby holes for things to grow out of. A little mustard green, really sad strawberry. I bought that bag of their dry stock, the cheapo brand, like $3 bargain. well, you get what you pay for. So not all of them are great, but this is one sprouting like crazy. This one's sprouting. This one's kind of elongated a bit. Got some more mustard greens up here, and then a strawberry up top. So verticals are a little different. This is a vertical that used to be a horizontal, which I kind of had over right along this area, and I originally stuffed it with polyester batting. Just didn't want to buy any more expanded clay pebbles because it could be pricey. There is a guy local to me that sells it, but I got to drive like 30 minutes to get it, so I was just looking for an easy fix. But the polyester batting didn't work, or at least by itself didn't work. So I did bite the bullet, and I bought some more pebbles. So the batting holds the pebbles in, and the pebbles distribute the water. So I did just some dry seeds. The only ones that sprouted was this, was this nasturtium, and this water spinach, some ong choy, which I love. I think if you can grow some stuff, like edible vegetables or anything that's going to grow like a plague, water spinach is one of them. You can grow it in straight water, and wet soil or whatnot. It's prolific. It has hollow stems that are really crunchy, and it tastes like spinach. So you cook it all together, it's actually really good. And then of course I had some extra oregano. I just cut this open and just shoved rootstock in there, and everything's kind of my focus. Everything seems to be growing. I had a dry spell last week. I didn't realize my sump was really low. So I also have a scarlet runner that I put in a little seed starter that I had over here that I was like, I don't know why I did it. I didn't have any extra room, but I just can't bring myself to kill plants. Well, on purpose. Killed plenty by accident. So I had a little extra bucket that I was using, and I had some extra pieces and parts, and put it all together, and it works, and it's growing, super fast. I think I'm just gonna train it wherever I can possibly train it. So yeah, for nutrients, I just use regular General Hydroponics, the Flora Grow, the Flora Micro, and Flora Bloom. I just dose equal parts, just for general growth, nothing too aggressive. Like I said, I went from a tomato that was this small in a month is now this big, so I'm getting some pretty good growth out of it. It's making me happy. Yeah, I'm not growing marijuana and all that, so I'm not looking to get too crazy with my growth. I just want plants to grow. So that's the way I go. I do use Great White. I will recommend that 100%. That's the mycelia fungus that will grow around the roots and encourage strong root structures. It'll also protect plants in kind of a harsh conditions, like if your water's too warm, or the bucket gets too hot. When I first started, the guy at the hydro store recommended it when I was dealing with issues with, I had some, the mother plant of this one, just half the root ball just was sludge. There was so much just root rot. And that stuff, I started using the system before I got a cooler, and it helped everything survive until I was able to fix everything. So I do dose a little spoonful every time I refill the water. And I have noticed that when you do look at the roots, you see that extra very, very fine white around the roots, and you see just nice healthy roots. So my sump, being that my patio gets blasted with, I do use a little bit of neem oil and water and soap. I don't have too many pest problems yet. I'm thankful for that. So the sump itself is an old, I think, 27-gallon tote. I got it at Home Depot, and wrapped it in Reflectex for a little insulation, and then styrofoam this. Kind of help just keep a little bit of the temp. And I don't put much air into my system. As you can see, that's just a tiny little aquarium pump. It just runs. It doesn't put a lot, but judging from my growth, I'm, you know, and probably from all the different drains that are splattering in, helps with a little bit of oxygenation of the water. So, like I said, it's good enough growth for me. I found that a lot of guys, when I was getting into hydroponics, trying to find answers, these guys were throwing out numbers and variables, and you need this and you need that, and you got to do this and you got to do that. And yeah, I ignorantly rebelled against it and said, well, I'm just going to wing it. And I mean, I did. And so far, my only serious struggle wasn't pH. I never touch my pH. I have pH up and pH down. I never mess with it. And because a lot of times they say, which I know they say, it could be some moron, but some of the nutrient solutions already have pH adjusters in them, what I've been told. So but everything seems okay. I mean, for semi-diverse tomatoes, peppers, herbs, citrus plants, greens, strawberries, it's working out so far. 2 years in, I must be doing something somewhat right. But what I will say, my serious struggle was water temp. Water temp will make or break a system. So I looked at all different ways of doing it, you know, Peltier systems to try to cool the water, fan, using evaporation cooling. Evaporation cooling is a cheap way, but once you get a humid environment, it doesn't do anything because it just kind of balances itself out. What I did use, speaking of evaporation and cooling and moisture, I had this dehumidifier on hand. I bought it for my old apartment, and I had no use for it. Didn't really want to break it, which it's not broken per se, but I figured money spent and it's just taking up space, I might as well give it a use. Took it apart. So that's the hot radiator. The dehumidifier basically chills down the water to pull out the air and then heats it up to drain it off the radiator. So the cold radiator, I built this out of styrofoam. I used that black rubber paint that they advertise was Flex Seal. Yes, it works. And I wrapped it in duct tape. I didn't want to get too crazy. It's on a little cheap cart that I got from Harbor Freight. I always try to find ways to make things work and not spend a lot of money, because hobbies can be expensive. So the cold radiator is dunked in a water bath. So this is just straight water. No nutrients eating at the copper, the aluminum for eventual failure. And it chills down this water bath. It's covered in these little plastic golf balls, which that actually helps keep the water bath from evaporating away and me having to constantly refill it all the time. And then I had some copper coil on hand, and I just basically made this giant that fits right next to the radiator. A copper coil is just I don't want to pull it out because I'm going to have to redo all the balls. And it just sits in the water. And it's got a little AC pump at the bottom that pumps through it. There's a hose line that goes into my sump and then back out of my sump. And then let me see if I get, so see, it's just a little bitty stream of water, tiny little pump, doesn't use much electricity. And it's attached, it used to be attached to this, which just sits in there because it's aluminum, but I was concerned, and even though it's all aluminum, this was getting corroded. So I yanked it out and used a one that's designed for a PC system, water-cooled system, and it works. It hooks up to an Inkbird that the probe sits in there, keeps the water temp. Whoop, there goes the system. It just turned on. So yeah, it works super well. I was amazed. It doesn't work a lot. It is on and off maybe 3 times a day for maybe 5 minutes. Because this gets super cold, and then sometimes it gets too cold to a point where that extra cold keeps this from even warming up. I actually forgot to turn the pump on, or I forgot to turn the pump off one day, and this whole thing froze like a solid block. So that just shows you how cold it can get. Love it, recommend doing it, super easy. Just be careful bending the copper so as not to ruin your pressure in your system. But definitely a good choice if you're in hydroponics and looking for a way to cool your sump tank. I think some guys use like a glycol, I don't know, antifreeze. I just wanted water. If there's a failure of any kind, I don't want it in my nutrient sump. I don't want it in my sump tank and my other water. So if there's failure, just water to water. Be done with it. Why risk anything more? I don't get too crazy on times. I use a cheap little timer. I think it's on and off for like a half an hour every other hour. Again, you see these guys that have these rules and whatnot. I gotta have it on 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. I'm sure it'll help be a little more optimum, yes. But for me, I'm just winging it. You know, as long as things aren't too wet or too dry, then there's problems. So far, it's wet enough and not dry. So it works. Things are growing. I'm getting fruits. 2 years in, having a blast. Can't wait to make that whole wall green. But, so yeah, that's my hydroponic system. You heard me ramble on a bit. I figured it's better than typing up a whole post having you read. Plus you get all the visuals. So yeah, I'll keep things updated from time to time along with everything else I post on Steemit. I'm glad to be here. And hopefully I'm giving you guys something fun to look at. And I guess until next time.